Say, hey, everybody, welcome back to Sorare FP. I am Alex Hooper here with another basketball edition. We did some baseball content. We're back to some basketball content. Previewing the trade deadline, which is coming up, Thursday, February 9th. So this Thursday coming up. Just wanted to take a look at a few players who may be traded and how it would impact their L10 and their roles on the team, stuff like that. Obviously, we're not going to know where they end up. Sorry, I'm trying to do all this on the fly. I didn't clean my glasses before the show. So, for a lot of these guys, we're just trying to predict where they end up. We can kind of have an idea just based on who they are, what their contracts are like, where they're at in their career, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the teams that they play on, things like that. But we do have one trade already in the books, so we'll look at that here in a second. Just had some NBA news come by. Let me check it out. Ooh, Ricky Rubio out today. Raul Neto season? All right. Doesn't matter. All right, we're waiting for rewards here on a Monday, so let's look at some upcoming trade deadline maybes. Okay. Let's talk about the trade that already happened. Kyrie Irving to the Mavericks for Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith and Markieff Morris and a couple of draft picks. So this is a weird one. I don't really love this deal for anybody involved as far as fantasy goes. Basketball-wise, pairing Luka with another star is great, even though the star could completely ruin the dynamic of your team, even when your owner already trashed the player that you're trading for his incredibly bizarre views on the world, and bizarre doesn't even cut it for, what was contained in the documentary that he, was praising. I don't need to go down that road. I don't even know why I started, but on the floor, fine move for them. The Nets kind of had to do it. I don't love the return. It does not make them better. Spencer Dinwiddie is fine. Dorian Finney-Smith is a nice 3-and-D player. I just don't think this serves any of them well for their fantasy value. So let's look at Kyrie really quick. Obviously, there was a spike in his limited. Some people just wanted to get in on the hype. You'll look at the rare market, and it's a little more logical. I think people kind of agree with me that, maybe this isn't the best move for Kyrie. His usage is going to go down. It's going to be very similar to what it was like with Kevin Durant, which you're seeing a lot of that here. Then Durant goes down, and all of a sudden you're seeing Kyrie up here. I expect him to return more to this range with an occasional 60-something, but as of right now, I don't believe Kyrie is playable at his current L10, unless he does play Thursday and Luka does not. I imagine they'll debut together, or maybe they just want Kyrie to get some amount of gelling done with his teammates. So, Kyrie, I think usage goes down. I don't know that this changes a whole lot. I don't like it for him. Luka, if you look at the market here, kind of standing still, it is Luka Doncic. Down a little bit. I think it makes sense to sell Luka right now. I think his usage is going to go down. His assist equity will probably go up. But I think the gap between he and Giannis and Jokic is, from a Sorare standpoint, is slim to none. I would say it's non-existent at this point. I don't think Luka will continue to be the elite fantasy value that he was. Again, on the floor, might make the Mavs a fair amount better. In Sorare, I don't think it helps Luka whatsoever. I don't think he is an elite play over and above the other elite plays. He's still Luka Doncic. That's not going to change. He's amazing. Spencer Dinwiddie. All right, so you see a little spike here. The illogical limited markets. The rare market seems to value it a little bit differently. They seem to like what he's going into. I don't think it changes a whole lot. I also don't even know that Spencer Dinwiddie stays with the Nets. There's a rumor going around that they are looking to flip him before the deadline. So if he does stay with the Nets, he's not going to have the same usage as he did in Dallas when they were down Luka. Ben Simmons is there. He can play point. He'll handle the ball a lot. Kevin Durant obviously needs the ball in his hands a lot. For Dinwiddie, I don't know. It's a wait and see for me on him. I don't think you run out and go get Spencer Dinwiddie right now. I think you wait to see what his role is. And maybe you want to speculate. Maybe you think this is low and he blows up. I wouldn't do that personally. Who it does impact currently, if Dinwiddie is moved on and they don't bring a point guard back, Edmund Sumner is the one who's stepping in right now. You can see the market kind of showing, what he's doing on a 9L10. People want him on their team right now, and you can see why. Minus Kyrie, dropped to 40 in 39 minutes. That was also with no Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons could play against the Clippers tonight, and then all of a sudden, Sumner, his output is going to be much different. Going forward, I think he still will start in the absence of Dinwiddie, but this is fine for these folks who got in, here especially. Like, he's not expensive. I think you could still go get him and play him and really not worry about it, depending on what your budget is. But would I be happy paying, a 50% premium on him to start him for one game this week if the rest of my lineup's good enough? But Sumner is fine. It's going to help him in the meantime. Same with Cam Thomas. You see the same sort of run. And he had a better game because I think he might be a better player than Edmund Sumner. I don't think this will continue. I don't think the Nets are going forward like, these are our guys. I think if that's the case, they need to trade Kevin Durant before Thursday. I don't know where you trade him. Phoenix, seeing as they did not land Kyrie. They need a point guard. We'll talk about that soon. But, I guess I wouldn't be terribly, terribly shocked if Kevin Durant was dealt. If Kevin Durant is dealt Cam Thomas and Edmund Sumner, I think you can go ahead and just be happy with paying a premium on them, because the next couple of weeks their L10s are going to be too low. Again, if they trade Kevin Durant, and we'll see about that. All right, let's move on to some potential trades, okay? Mike Conley. The Jazz were a feel-good story coming out of the gates, trading Rudy Gobert, trading Donovan Mitchell, and everyone was like, all right, they're going to trade off and tank for Victor Wembanyama. That wasn't the case. They were good, and they were good. I don't think they're still riding high. I didn't check the standings. Let me do that right now. I'm pretty sure they've dropped a decent amount. Yeah, they're out of the playoff picture currently. They're 500, sitting in 10th. They could go for the play-in tournament if they wanted, or they could sell off their assets while they have the opportunity and get better. Could they still make the play-in tournament while selling a guy like Mike Conley? Possibly. And I think that behooves them, because Conley, a 35-year-old veteran, should be playing on a team that needs a point guard, Phoenix, and a number of other teams like the Lakers maybe, if they can make that work. He's going to lose a lot of usage probably. He'll be, a distributing point guard, but he's fantastic, steals the ball a lot. Veterans like Mike Conley are going to go to better teams. Younger guys on big contracts will probably go to worse teams as, their roles change. So let's see. Conley is one of the Jazz guys that could be traded. His value going down. At that price, really not bad, but a 30 L10, I don't think he's going to do anything where all of a sudden, he's blowing it up. I don't think his role is going to change so much that he outperforms the current 30. I think maybe it drops a little bit, and then after that, he's capable of doing something a little bigger. Malik Beasley is the other one with the Jazz, who he could go to a contender. He's a great three-point shooter. You see that I have 2 Malik Beasleys, and I would be very happy if he came to my Cavs. Market is with most players kind of declining. Again, this price, fine. It's fine for Malik Beasley. Let's see. If he goes to a team like the Cavs or another contender, his role's really not going to change. He actually might step into the starting lineup for the Cavs because he spaces the floor with a guy like Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell. What the Cavs need is floor spacing. I say that as a Cavs fan. I can't speak for other teams because I don't watch the other teams as intently as I do with the Cavs. But if any shooter goes to the Cavs, you might be able to expect a role change. Otherwise, a guy like Beasley, going to be something similar. It depends on where he goes. He's going to be a shooter, and he has the chance to outperform his L10 a bunch. Like right now, sitting at a 21. You can see his L40 is 25. So like on a 21, he's dangerous. He can put something up like a 40, and you really like that. Or he can put up a 9 like he did the other night and kill my lineup. My lineup that still finished in 40th place. And had he had that 40, would have won me a super rare. But anyway, yeah, Beasley. Role won't change a ton. He's a dynamic scorer and could get more shots up. I don't really know. It depends on where he goes. Jordan Clarkson, he's going to get his shots regardless. I don't know that his usage stays where it is if he leaves. Same sort of market, decline. Six-man volume scorer, always going to be kind of the case that he can blow up, but might need an adjustment on his L10. Last guy, Jared Vanderbilt, currently hurt. He's the guy that everyone's calling the Jazz about, apparently. Young guy, 23 years old. Has some output in him. Depends on where he went. 20 minutes a game. Maybe he gets more somewhere else. I don't know. It's just another guy I wanted to look at. For the Jazz, if any of these moves happen, like Conley or Beasley or Clarkson, those are all guards. You're looking at Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji. I know I butchered that, but so Sexton's still on the decline, but you saw someone who, likes what they see here. He's kind of been on a decline all year. Everyone thought he was going to be real good. Recommended him to Quinny, and Quinny bought him high and hasn't returned that investment. Down, because he has not matched the output we thought we would see from him. Very stagnant, does not outperform his L10 by much at all, ever. But at least in the time after one of those guys get traded, like if Mike Conley gets traded, Colin Sexton's going to pop off. Like he's just going to play 10 more minutes, and by pop off I mean, if he's playing 20 minutes, he had 10 minutes. It's just the same amount of points per minute times 10. Like he's not going to outperform a ton, even though we know he can. Going back to his Cavs days, I didn't play a ton. Maybe that's not the one to look at. But in his early Cavs days, he was doing stuff like this. He's good. He should be better. But, if this price dips a little more in the next couple of days, I don't think Sexton's a bad shout. If you want a really low, speaking of former Cavs, a really low L10, Agbaji, he's holding strong as he finally picked up some playing time, but, he's not expensive at all. He's a rookie. He'll get some more time if one of those guards is traded. The other one is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He might be traded as well, but he's not getting many minutes at all. Very cheap right now, as you can see. 13 L10, and with good minutes, can put up 30. Like, how many minutes was he playing there? Yeah, 28 point per minute scorer type of guy, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less and some other times. But when he steps into those roles, he can score 30. He's fine. It's just a matter of whether or not he gets traded. If he does not get traded and the Jazz hold him, I would actually run and buy Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Maybe even if they don't trade Conley, because they could just buy him out. Although, if they don't trade him, they'll probably compete. So, I know that was a lot of information. Let's see. Moving on to the Toronto Raptors. This is another team that could blow things up. Starting with OG Anunoby, who he has some big games in him, as you see here. Like, he can do a lot. He's on a deflated L10 currently. Sounds like everybody wants him for good reason. He's a fine player. His price is actually, I don't know. It's good. He's not old. If traded to some other team, he's likely to be, like a face of the franchise type of guy. One of the teams that are looking at him is New York. the Knicks, he would slot him with Jalen Brunson and R.J. Barrett and Julius Randle, who are all high usage guys. I wouldn't like that trade for Anunoby's fantasy value. He would likely take a dip and have to readjust. Like, I don't think if he were traded today, I don't think you're playing him on this 25. Like, yeah, that's a value. I really like this value. But he has big games in him. I don't know that he's just got the explosion that you're going to want to play him in and out. I wouldn't buy him for this price tag, honestly. Moving on with the Raptors, Fred VanVleet, a guy who's been very up and down, outperforming his L10 right now, a little closer to what we thought he would do. He has the big game in him, high usage type of guy. Likely to decline his player option. So with the Raptors not in a spot to contend, you would think that they deal him. I think he's the most likely to be dealt from the Raptors, especially this is the guy who makes the most sense for the Suns. He's a guy that they can sign long term. If he goes to the Suns and Chris Paul is moved, then all of a sudden you get some playoff value out of him. Other teams like the Clippers and the Heat make sense for him. The Magic and the Wolves, maybe not as good playoff odds. But VanVleet's a guy I would definitely look at. In terms of his fantasy value, going and playing next to Devin Booker, I think they boost each other. Not that Booker can, boost his fantasy value much more. But I like that situation for him quite a bit. If he goes to the Suns, I really like that. I can't speak necessarily for the Clippers. If he goes to the Heat, then all of a sudden the Heat have yet another guy who can go for 60 on any given night. That's the funny thing about playing Heat players is Hero could do it, Butler could do it, Adebayo can do it, and if they added Fred VanVleet, it'd be something like that. But generally, you don't see teams trade big stars within the division. So Phoenix. I would be looking for Phoenix. And at this price point, that's fine. That's holding. He's good. You could buy him and kind of hope to flip him, but I like him. Here's a guy who's been doing terribly, and his price is going down, and he is much better than he's showing. Yeah, like these prices are probably too low for a guy like this. Guy who can put up 76. He's just not doing well right now, but an L10 of 39, you love that for him. I don't really know. I don't really know what to expect. I don't know why they would trade him, other than if they just blow the whole thing up. Lastly, Gary Trent, a guy who is probably pretty likely to be traded. Decent price, similar decline with the market, has a big game in him. I think wherever he goes, it would be an L10 and usage drop at first. But he's got the big game in him. So, I don't know. At 0.054, not a bad rare. I mean, at 0.01, that's a fine big game guy to have. Like, these are the type of guys that you want on your roster. Just anyone who's going to outperform their L10 or can outperform their L10 no matter what it is, Gary Trent's a guy like that. So, really quick. Losing my voice already. We're about halfway through. All right, so Raptors minutes depend on who's dealt. Could be one of them, could be none of them, could be all of them. If Trent or Fred VanVleet are dealt, Malachi Flynn and is it Danilo Banton, I don't know his name. That opens up minutes for them. If it's Siakam or OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher, Scotty Barnes, Thad Young's another one who's on the roster, but he'd probably be bought out or dealt if they decided to trade him. So that's the Raptors. Malachi Flynn's bounced up and down because he's got like a decent L10. He's one of those guys who's always a little bit deflated. That's a fine trade or a fine price point at which to maybe get in on Malachi Flynn. I don't hate this, and if you see some better minutes, maybe he gets an opportunity. My robot vacuum is running right next to me. We can't be having that during the show. Technology. Delano Banton. Very cheap. Maybe a guy to get in there. I mean, hopefully he gets a couple more opportunities and lowers that L10 even further, but, like, I think you can prepare at that number. Shooting guard, God, I might go buy him right now, honestly. Just get a nice couple minutes out of him. And we talked about Barnes. Rookie of the year last year, unjustly. Price is fine. He can have a big game. Pretty consistent, honestly. Yeah, whatever. Scotty Barnes. We talked about Boucher as well. Up and down because you never know if he's actually going to play. Don't love that price point for a 30-year-old. All right. Another guy I like here. Kyle Kuzma. He would be a guy going to a contender. $13 million a year. Like anyone can take that on. Any contender, pretty much. That's fine. He slots into a lot of lineups. I think he's a sneaky buy for someone out there. If he is dealt, let's see, Kuzma. You get playoff equity if he's dealt to a contender. I do think it's going to take a while for his L10 to adjust, even though he's got a couple of bad games here. So maybe it won't take too long. I don't know that you're going to see some 60s and 56s, and I don't think he's going to be that guy on a team that's not the Wizards, but Kuz can play. If he's dealt Denny Avdija, he steps into a nice role there. He's the most obvious minutes getter. He's already rising because he's been pretty good lately. Yeah. Trending up, so his price is trending up. Maybe not the time to strike. Maybe if his L10 goes down a little bit or his price goes down a little bit in the next couple of days, maybe that makes sense. Another guy who could get some minutes is Will Barton. Hasn't been getting a ton of minutes, but low L10. Price is a little inflated for some reason, but hasn't been playing. So, if you can get him near $20, maybe worth a shout. Is that it? Is that it on Washington? Yeah. All right, let's move on to Chicago. Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic. Oops. All of them could be traded. None of them could be traded. One of them could be traded. Same sort of situation. You don't know what the Bulls are going to do. LaVine, I can't see his usage being as high on another team. I don't think anyone wants him there to be volume shooting. I think they want him. I mean, he's going to shoot, but I think they want him playing defense and slashing and hitting threes, but not like the focal point of the offense. I can't see that being the case. So that's him. 0.0744. DeMar DeRozan, however, is a little different. I've said it a million times. One of my favorite plays on the platform because he's just so erratic, and his L10 is often suppressed. Hasn't been doing much lately, which is great because now he's on a 36 L10. He can drop you a 72, and you love him. DeMar DeRozan's not going to change. DeMar DeRozan's going to go somewhere if he is dealt, which his contract is pretty friendly. Old dog, new tricks, that sort of thing. Like, if he goes somewhere, he's going to shoot. That's why you're trading for him. You want a guy who can just go out there and score efficiently. Well, that's not the way to put it. He's not terribly efficient. He creates offense. He gets buckets. And maybe his usage isn't as high, but he's still going to be the same sort of guy who can just blow up. I think he's the most likely to be traded of this bunch, especially at his age, and I think he's the one who would be affected the least by a deal. Nikola Vucevic, if he were dealt, I think is the most likely to be affected. I don't think his usage stands up, but he rebounds at a huge clip. He can hit threes. He does things on defense, but some days he just kind of disappears. And I don't think anyone's trading for Nikola Vucevic to be the cornerstone of the franchise. So they're all on big contracts, all three of these Bulls guys. So you would think that big contracts come back, but we're talking big contracts like a Russell Westbrook where, like, you're not bringing them in to take into the future. You're bringing them into salary match and then maybe buy out their contract, something like that. So another one where it depends on who comes in, but those people, if they're not bought out, would likely soak up a lot of minutes for any of these guys. As far as people on the team, Andre Drummond would be the guy to benefit currently from Vucevic. Big-time fantasy value when he plays. Rebounds at a very high clip. Very efficient scorer when he shoots because he shoots from 2 feet and under. If you win him, don't sell him, but I wouldn't run out and buy him. Tony Bradley's the other one. Young kid. Let's see. Oh, he's not that young anymore. He's 25. Low L10. Very cheap. For this, I might run out and just buy him and pray. Yeah, I'm going to actually pull him up. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, just in case he's dealt, but whatever. All right. Moving on, a couple more people, just individuals that could be traded. John Collins, people have been talking about him being dealt from the Hawks for a long time. Hawks got a lot of problems. I don't know that it's John Collins, but I think he'd probably go to a bad team because he's a very talented younger player with a lot of bounce. He could be kind of the future. He's got a few more years on his contract. Think like the Hornets, something like that. If he played center for the Hornets, they might actually not be completely abysmal against other centers. I would expect a jump with him. If he's on your roster, I think you're hoping for a trade and hoping for him to step into a better situation. For the Hawks, if he is dealt, they're just trying to open up more minutes for Onyeka Okongwu, who had his time in the sun during Clint Capella's injury, but that price is coming back down. Let's see. Yeah, so now back to where it was, essentially. 22 years old. He's finally showing some promise in the league. I think that's not a horrible price point to go get him and pray. AJ Griffin's already starting. He can be very frustrating if you have him. He's not like blowing away as L10, but he can play well in decent minutes. And with a Collins trade, you get some decent minutes. So look out for Griffin, especially 19 years old, like long-term play, and not the worst price. Ooh, I'm running out of gas. All right. All right, so the Pacers were another team kind of expected a deal early in the year. Before the season, we heard a lot about Miles Turner and Buddy Hield to the Lakers. Sure. He'd go to a contender or the Lakers. He does so many things, I don't think his role would be impacted a ton. Like, he can shoot the three, he can rebound, he can block shots, and that's where his value comes from. He might lose a little bit of usage, especially in LA, but he's not a guy who depends on scoring opportunities other than his three-point attempts, and I think those would still come. He's a center, and centers don't generally lose three-point attempts when they go to another team. They generally are dealt for because they can shoot threes, so maybe that even goes up. Especially, again, with the Lakers, like, AD can drift to the corner, Turner can drift to the corner, and then the other one can pick and roll with LeBron. Like, it's not a really bad situation at all. And with the defense between the three of them, or at least Turner and Davis, it makes a lot of sense. But I don't think his role would be affected too much by a change. Whose role would be affected is Isaiah Jackson. This is what happened when Miles Turner sat, and this is also what happened when Miles Turner sat. 38, 35. Couple of good games. Jackson would be the one to step into Turner's role. He's a nice player. He's a young player. And at this price, the Turner trade is not as likely, it seems. But that's really not a bad price for Isaiah Jackson. I don't know what I paid. Here I am. I bought about, 2 times that price. So maybe it looks better to me than most. Another guy who could benefit is Daniel Theis, who just got back from injury. He's not very good. From a fantasy perspective, I don't know, with more minutes that L10 will even out, but I wouldn't do that if I were them, if I were the Pacers. Maybe the most likely player in the entire league to be traded is Eric Gordon. If you can find him for this price, Yeah, right around there. I would go buy Eric Gordon because Eric Gordon's going to get traded to a contender. Initially, he's probably going to take a bit of a usage bump. He's getting a lot of shots in Houston because they're abysmal, and he is, the old dog on the team. He's the alpha dog on the team. But he's a guy who can explode, and that's why teams want him. He's kind of erratic. This is what happens with scorers. Gordon, DeRozan, guys like that. He will take nights off because he is 34, which is ancient in the NBA. But we're talking, the Bucks, Lakers, Suns, Cavs need someone like this. I don't think the Cavs can afford him. Bucks, Suns, all of a sudden you're looking at, a finals run instead of the Rockets, which there's a big difference there. I like Eric Gordon a lot. I have him, and he has won me some cards. I enjoy using him quite a bit. He scores in bursts, and it's great. For the Rockets, you'd be opening up time for Josh Christopher, who stepped into some new opportunities lately. He's all over the place. Still a fairly low L10, still a fairly low price. He's not bad. Improving every night. Got a big-time blowout run against the Thunder the other night, so I wouldn't let that 30 change what you think of Josh Christopher. Ty Washington also stepped into an opportunity when Gordon and someone else was out for them. Put up the 28, but he would step into more honest playing time. He's not, I don't know, he's not my favorite guy, but he would get more of an opportunity in a 7L10 like you can do worse. Bojan Bogdanovic has a lot of usage in Detroit. If he's traded, it will be to a contender again, and he'll probably lose a ton of usage off the rip. Again, another guy like Gordon, another guy like DeRozan, big-time scorer, high usage in the current situation, would probably drop in another situation. But then once it does normalize, he would be able to go off. Another explosive scorer, as you see here, erratic, but yes, he can blow up. Just another guy just like that. In Detroit, that would open up Isaiah Livers, who's fine, pretty cheap right now. Bad team. You'll see him getting more of a rotation later in the year as Detroit kind of scales down. Kevin Knox is another guy. I have some pretty strong cognitive bias against Kevin Knox. I don't think he's very good. He does just stand around. Not a guy I'd be running to. I'd go to Livers instead. In San Antonio, Jakob Poeltl. Underperforming his L10 currently. That's actually surprising. He can put up some really big games. 26 L10, he can 2x that. That's a nice spot. He's another guy. The Celtics could use a guy like Jakob Poeltl. They like their big guys in the middle. He goes there, then all of a sudden, the usage comes down, but I don't think he's a guy who's dependent on that type of usage, and all of a sudden he's on a playoff contender who, they can make a deep run. I think adding Jakob Poeltl makes them a serious, not as if they're not already a contender, but a favorite, an odds-on favorite. That'd be a big addition. He'd be more efficient. The other guy that could be is Mason Plumlee as well. Not quite the same name. Talking about for Boston. Pretty consistent. 10 and 10, stuff like that. Don't love him no matter where he's at. If Poeltl is dealt, this is the wrong Zach Collins, y'all. CACH. My bad. Zach Collins could be the guy who would step in for Poeltl. He's had a depressed L10 for a while, but he could put up big games as well. So you see his price go up and down. The other one's Charles Bassey. Hurt right now. Price is dipping. Not very good. He put up some nice numbers here, but he could step in. But last guy I want to talk about, Bones Highland, seems very likely to be dealt. No matter where he goes, he's going to be like that Clarkson type off the bench, and whoever comes into Denver likely to be like a defensive presence. That's what they want there, not a volume scorer off the bench. That's just not what they're looking for. Highland, another guy, a shooter, scorer, scores and bursts, things like that. So that's what you can expect from the trade deadline. We will talk again after the trade deadline to see what we expect from some of the movers and shakers, some of the deals that happen. We'll recap, and hopefully Keith will be with me. So patreon.com/Sorare FP if you want our projections, if you want to see how the projections shake out when these guys are dealt. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be crazy. Thursday, trade deadline. And we'll talk to you afterwards.